Hi, and welcome back to this Monday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Great to have you in the conversation. I want to talk first of all about this very striking by Niall Ferguson of Harvard University. Now, he came out and apologized for this, abjectly apologized for what he had said, but nevertheless, he said it. And he wrote virtually the same thing in a book that he published in 1999. So this has been a part of the way Niall Ferguson, who's a historian at Harvard. So this guy is hardcore elitist academically, and he's simply making an observation about John Maynard Keynes. Now, John Maynard Keynes, or Keynes, however you want to say it, was an economist in the early part of the 20th century. And he is the father of all of this bilge that when you are in an economic slump, the way you get out of it is to tax and spend your way out of it. You got to spend. The government has to get larger. The government has to spend more money. The government has to borrow more money. The government has to increase taxes. That's how you get yourself out of an economic slump. And Winston Churchill said, look, that's like a guy thinking for a government to think it can tax and spend its way out of a recession or a depression or a slump is like a guy standing in a bucket and trying to pull himself up by the handle. That's a pretty vivid word picture, and it happens also to be accurate. But Keynes was the one who was behind all of this. So when Barack Obama starts his administration, we gotta borrow $900 billion right now. We gotta lay it in the knapsack of our children and our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren after them, because that's how you stimulate the economy. Nancy Pelosi's out there. Every dollar we spend in welfare, that's a $1.73 stimulus to the economy. That is Keynesian thinking. It's nonsense. It's absurd. From an economic standpoint, it is idiotic. It is moronic. It doesn't make sense at any level. You know, I've used this analogy before. It's not original with me. I got it from my good buddy Crane Durham, host of Nothing But True right here on AFR Talk. Any government program, I don't care what it is, a welfare program, a government job, I don't care what it is, every government job, every government welfare program is a drain on the economy. No government job has ever created any wealth, period. Not ever. Not one single time. Every government job, even the good jobs. So I'm not against all government jobs. Do not misunderstand me. You know, we need lawmakers. We need a functioning court system. We need law enforcement. We need incarceration. We need a military to keep us safe, and the other things that are described, Article 1, Section 8. I have absolutely zero problem, neither do you, with taxpayers providing funds to pay people to do legitimate government jobs, provide for justice, protect the national security, and do the things that are outlined in Article 1, Section 8. We got no problem with that. We're fine with the government punishing counterfeiters and punishing pirates. We're even fine with them building post offices because that's something that we, the people, gave them the authority to do. What we are against is government spending money on programs and jobs for which there is absolutely no constitutional authorization. That bugs us. It bothers us because it's wrong. It's immoral. It's unethical, as well as being illegal and unconstitutional. Well, who's the father of this expanding government? It's John Maynard Keynes. Now, unfortunately, George Bush fell for a lot of this thinking. You know that the original kind of bank bailout thing in the fall of 2008, that was a George Bush special. That's a John Maynard Keynes special. That's George Bush. I mean, he admitted he violated his free market principles when he did that. But here's what I'm getting to. This was Niall Ferguson talking about John Maynard Keynes. And here's what the point I want to make is John Maynard Keynes and his economic philosophy will result in the economic collapse of Western civilization. We got a report coming out from the Social Security Administration. Their trustees are going to release a report this week. It indicates that the Social Security Trust Fund is going to be bankrupt by 2031. There will simply be no money. Now, there's no money in there right now. We just got a bunch of these IOUs, and the Ben Bernanke's just down in the basement printing money to satisfy these IOUs. There's no wealth behind that. It's just paper money. It's just monopoly money coming off a printing press. in the basement of the Federal Reserve. So it's worthless paper, and it's diluting the value of the currency in your wallet. But nevertheless, it's going to be spit out, and it's going to be spent to send the face amount to Social Security recipients. But even that is going to be completely burned through by 2031. There won't be a dollar in there. And that means that people that are 47 or under, if you're listening to the sound of my voice and you are 47 and under, you are only going to get back at the most 75 cents of every dollar that you put into Social Security. I repeat, you will get back only 75 cents of every dollar that you pay in taxes to Social Security. You are going to get a net negative return. This is supposed to be the retirement vehicle. Hey, give us your money. We'll watch it for you. We'll take care of it, and we'll give you more back than you paid in. That was the promise. It'll be like an investment that grows over time. Well, that's a myth. It's gone. And so you're going to actually get a negative return on your Social Security investment, which never was a very good deal to begin with. I mean, the rate of return is like 2%. You know, you can do 6-7% in the private market, which is where the money should have been going all of this time. So even the fact that it went into government coffers means that you and I are paying a net loss of 4%. We could be getting 6-7% in the open market. Instead, we're getting this measly 2%, and that money's not even going to be there to do that. So we've already taken it in the chops to the tune of 4% over what we could have, and you add that up with compound interest over time. That's a big chunk of change. So anyway, so this Keynesian idea, all of FDR's programs, all of the Great Society from LBJ, all of the Obama stuff, Obamacare, all of that's Keynesian. Now here's what I'm getting to. This is a piece on Financial Advisor. Harvard professor and author Niall Ferguson says John Maynard Keynes' economic philosophy was flawed. About time somebody said that. That's what you and I have been saying since this program started. His economic philosophy was flawed, and he didn't care about future generations because he was gay and didn't have children. Now, later in that same day, the blowback from the stormtroopers on the pro-sodomy cabal, they sent their stormtroopers out to assault this guy. So the pro-sodomy stormtroopers got Niall Ferguson to issue an abject apology by 4 o'clock that day. Well, let's see, 10:21 p.m., same day. And it was an unqualified apology. Not the same day he spoke them, but the same day the comments came to light. Speaking at the 10th annual Altegris Conference in Carlsbad, California, in front of a group of more than 500 financial advisors and investors, Ferguson responded to a question about Keynes' famous philosophy of self-interest versus the economic philosophy of Edmund Burke, who believed there was a social contract among the living as well as the dead. So Edmund Burke says, look, we have a social contract with the people that are alive. We have to be responsible to them. We got to do the right thing by them. We have a responsibility to generations that have come before us to preserve their legacy, and we have a responsibility to those who will come after us. There's this social contract. There is this stream of culture, a stream of civilization, and we have a responsibility, a moral and financial responsibility for the children and grandchildren and their children who will come after us. So Edmund Burke, and that was the philosophy that largely shaped the philosophy of the founding fathers, always was looking generations down the road. We cannot think just about our own generation, about ourselves. We must be thinking about our children and about our grandchildren and about their children, thinking generations into the future. And this is a biblical point of view. Remember when God said to Abraham, I will make your descendants like the sand on the seashore, like the stars in the sky. What was God doing? He was looking for down the road generations to come. So always you have this long-range view of public policy in the Bible. Now, John Maynard Keynes was completely in contrast to that. No social contract. Ferguson asked the audience how many children Keynes had, back to the financial advisor piece. He explained that Keynes had none because he was a homosexual and was married to a ballerina with whom he talked of poetry rather than procreation. The audience went quiet at the remark. Ferguson is the Lawrence A. Tisch Professor of History at Harvard University. And what Ferguson says, it's only logical that Keynes would take this selfish worldview because he was an effete, that's his word, an effete member of society. That means soft. It means effeminate, no strength, no masculinity, soft and weak. And this writer, Tom Costigan, who is very upset with Niall Ferguson, he's part of the pro-sodomy Gestapo, the gay Stapo that went out and forced this guy to apologize. And he says this, and this is true, it perversely, talking about Niall Ferguson's comments, it even perversely pins the full weight of the financial crisis on the gay community. This is exactly right. This is exactly what Niall Ferguson is saying, and he is right. So he's saying, look, this Keynes guy, he did not care about future generations. He didn't have to. He had no interest in future generations. He could care less about the impact of his economic policy on his children because he didn't have any, because he was gay. He was homosexual. He couldn't procreate. And so he didn't care about the impact of his economic philosophy on the generations immediately following him or the generation to come after them. So his philosophy was a get it now. And if it feels good, do it. He was a narcissist. He was a hedonist. And he was a homosexual. And so this short-sighted philosophy, that's why it's all spend it now. That's exactly where this comes from. We got to borrow the money. We got to spend it now on infrastructure and welfare and on education. It'll come back to us in spades. That's all John Maynard Keynes. It's very short-sighted. It doesn't make common sense. It winds up endangering generations to come. We've talked about Social Security's in the tank. It's history 2031. There's not a dime anywhere. And you're 47 or under, listen to the sound of my voice, you're going to get 75 cents back on the dollar. I mean, that's a reverse investment. And, you know, right now you're subsidizing those that are on Social Security. You're paying for them. It's coming out of your wallet. That money that you're putting into Social Security, it's not being set aside anywhere. It's not being protected. There's no account with your name on it. It's being spent on senior citizens who in turn work to pay for the Social Security benefits of the people who came before them. So it's all a big giant Ponzi scheme. That goes back to John Maynard Keynes, and he believed that because he was a homosexual. His viewpoint, his view of history, very short-sighted, short-circuited, cared about himself and his generation exclusively. So homosexuality in the end is going to be responsible for the collapse of the Western economy.